Howdy folks, my name's Christian and welcome to Bullish on Farming. Today's December 2nd. It's a Friday, about to leap into the weekend and spending some time with these two gilts here in our morning chores. These girls got about 3 days left on the farm and well, I'd say this girl's about 285. That's what I'm betting on. And we've gotten some insight with the pork we've been sending all the way from 250 plus. The ones we sent about 4 or 5 weeks ago were in at 265. So these girls got days on them. And this girl's a bit bigger than the other one. But I'm saying she's about 285. Let me know down below if you got an idea or if you raise hogs. This is a Berkshire Tamworth Cross girl who's clearly got the strong Berkshire gene in her coloring and coat. And this girl's the same, playing with the feed bag that I just laid out the feed with. Hey girl, come on. And I'm just gonna throw this in a paddock that is expired clearly. But I talked about earlier how I held them in this paddock. It is a lower paddock and it pools up. Before I wanted to make this the last paddock. That's higher and drier, and it had about 80 days of rest. So plenty of stuff for the just two gilts to, you know, finish their time on the farm here. Plenty of grass. With this wet, they've been rooting up plenty, probably eating tons of worms, which we're all about for finishing these girls now. And I just want to talk about, you know, the last few days on the farm with the girls, what we're doing. We were feeding them hog grower, fermented scratch grain, homegrown spelt, and we were throwing kelpin mixed with the feed too. And you know, that's what we tried to stay consistent with. There were some times we didn't have the bag of kelp, took about a week to get in, but that's what we pretty much tried to do when we had all the ingredients most of the time. And now that these girls are only here for a few days, we have another bag of hog grower left after this one, but no more scratch grain. And you know, if I just had scratch grain left, I'd be okay with that because these girls are at finishing weight past that. So the lower protein feed to finish your animals once they hit finishing weight is okay if you want to save yourself some money. And that really starts to make sense when you got higher numbers, more pork going out, because you know, each bag of feed costs you so much, and that time so many head will start to add up. But for these two girls, you know, we're finishing with the hog grower. The market produce that was coming, oh, I didn't mention that. We got about 4 Rubbermaid totes of market produce coming out here to these girls all the way up until the 2nd week of November. And we noticed that substantially made a difference in our meat. We believe that it's infused it with some good flavoring and nutritional density. See, this smaller black girl, she used to get pushed around by all of them. You can see that she's standing her own now. She's got 1 foot in the feeder. And you know, when I went to go get these feeders at the beginning of the season, some folks were like, weren't you worried about your, you know, pigs stepping in your feed? And I understand why they would say that, because most pigs are raised in a pig barn or a one permanent paddock setting where they don't really get to rotate and things go rank. And so they're stepping in their poop, and you know, their droppings are all in the manure and mud, and then they're stepping in their feed. And you don't really want that for hygienic conditions. Out here, folks, the pigs spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks when we had less head in here, but 2 weeks at a time, and every paddock gets 10 weeks of rest. So we don't even give our land the chance to go rank and start breeding, you know, those undesired bacterias and conditions for worming and letting things like manure be an issue. We want manure to be our strength by managing the rotation of our animals properly and distributing manure in an intentional way that serves to fertilize the land and feed the soil. And that's what we're all about here. That's what we do with our cattle. You know, they're in the permanent paddock right now with access to about 1.5 acre bush, free range back there. And this is just for a short window. I talked about in a previous video, we don't have the temperatures below 0 consistently enough yet. We did for about a week stretch, Not anymore. So the cattle gotta wait, and we're praying in about 7 to 10 days we're gonna be getting that. All we need is about 2 days of temperature sub-zero, and we can be out on a field that we plan to target graze, a high section that stays in the shade and stays frozen and firm because it doesn't get much solar exposure due to the shade, and that allows us to stay on that section of the field and bale graze, have the cattle on the land and moving bales to sweep them through our desired areas. But now with the pigs, you know, we're not so concerned because they dig and root so much, and there's just 2 left in here. And I'm not saying I'm smart enough to have figured that out, but it does work in our favor that as we get into fall and the wet season, we have less head, because managing waste and your paddock quality is much easier with less animals in it. But having said that, you work with what you got. So, you know, these girls, I'm happy to let them dig and finish their job here in this paddock. And in spring, I'm excited to see how all this land's gonna be coming up. We got good tree to no tree ratio in here. Some of the paddocks need work on that. We took down some trees this year over in those 2 paddocks. We've cleaned out all the brush now. But, you know, a paddock like this, some people might look at it and say, oh my gosh, look what the pigs have done. And I would say, oh my gosh, look what the pigs have done. They've rooted up the soil. They've broken up kind of the muddy, waterlogged areas. And of course there's gonna be pooling in here. They're not gonna fix that in one season. But by, you know, moving the soil around and exposing it like this, ready to take seed, I think that we're gonna be doing good in the spring, especially if we do some frost seeding in here with some of the vegetation we want in our paddocks for our pigs. And that's where things also get exciting, because you can even hand broadcast seed right after the pigs pass. And so then there's 10 weeks rest before your pigs are even back in that paddock. And that's enough time for certain seed to take and sprout enough for feed certain plants. This is a paddock that was grazed that the pigs were in. You know, I couldn't even tell you, but it's about 8 weeks ago. Okay. No, it could be 6 weeks ago. Anyways, you could see that there's some baby sprouts and some sun areas, and if we were getting more sun, we'd have more of that. So we're going to be working on that. But this is what something looks like after more time, even not with conditions that will really allow your land to bounce back, because we're on the tail end of fall. You don't expect it to flush out for you. And this is the paddock that they were in before they were in this one. Okay, so 2 rotations ago they were in here. Again, it looks fine. Okay, great for this land to bounce back. This one looks a little tough because the pigs just moved out of it a week and a half to 2 weeks ago, and because it was wet the whole time they were in there, pretty much, they got to do a lot of digging. And this is our lowest paddock. Okay, and even our training pen is getting flooding, which isn't going to make things fun for loading, you know, these last 2 girls. But maybe we could finish all our pork by mid to end November next year and not get into December to, you know, deal with the volatile weather. If it's not frozen water for the pigs, then it's just, you know, these kind of splish splashy conditions that aren't ideal to work in, but we still love doing it because it's for the animals. And so you just learn year after year, and you tailor your program to what you're willing to do. And yeah, so, you know, these nipples on here, they're thawed out, and that's good for me, so I don't have to haul out buckets. They're just here for another 2-3 days, so I'm not going to move that water. They're here for another couple weeks. I might go find a tree with some green around it over there and strap it around there, nice fresh section, because most of your, you know, bacterial problems will be around your waterer or your feeders. And I just moved that feeder just now before the video. It was here before it was there, and before it was over there. And I drag that feeder every 3 to 5 days. When it's wet like this, it's like every 3 days, to more fresh areas so that the animals, when they spend their time here, it's not an area that's poached and a recipe for Ranksville, because that's what that was turning into. And that's not even so bad. But if we're being proactive and preventative for our animal hygiene and our quality of life control, then that's just something you'd enjoy doing. So yeah, folks, another day on the farm. I'd like to say thanks for stopping by. God bless you all. See you on the next one.